Welcome to SynerComm's IT Trendsetters. My name is Chris Lee. I'm your host today. I have Brian Judd and a person that doesn't need to be introduced, Kirk, the CTO of SynerComm. So before we get started, Brian, why don't you give us a little bit of background on you and who you are?
Sure. I've been in the IT industry for longer than I care to mention at this point, but 16 years now with SynerComm. I got an opportunity early on with SynerComm to do some IT audits and assessments and things like that. And through the last 16 years, helped build and develop an audit and consulting program. And today, a leading penetration testing group that I help manage. So pretty exciting to sit down and talk to you today.
Great. Kirk, I think everyone here knows you. You're into fast cars and cryptocurrency. But before we get started, and I know we touched on this a little bit in our last conversation, but I want to kind of use this to start our discussion today, is you were recently mentioned as a finalist in SC Magazine for vulnerability management and pen testing. Can you give us a little bit of background on what that means and what it is?
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it. It's a pretty generic some of our business partners are in the category, which actually highlights the uniqueness we bring to the whole picture there. We have people that do the vulnerability management. We have people that do other parts like that. But what we really do is tie it all together, the full layer of the perimeter and the OSI stack, and put context around and validate for clients what does their perimeter look like, and where could they be vulnerable to attack, and provide real-time status. So it's pretty exciting. It's really a combination of what we've done uniquely is a lot of people come out and create an engine or something, and they want to have the ultimate algorithm. What we do is we have a whole bunch of algorithms and scanning engines that we call our CASM Engine that collects data and puts it all together in a usable format for us and our clients. But then we also have pen testers who take that data, interpret it, and add context for our clients so that they can focus on other parts of their network, and we can help validate things before they have to spend resources and time trying to address issues that may or may not be an issue. So that's where we fit into that whole part. And that was a nice validation of what we've been doing with launching an application for the first time, which we call the CASM Engine. And we're pretty excited about it. And I'm sure you'll hear about it more here as we talk today.
Very good. Well, congratulations again. Very interesting place to be amongst such large venture-backed and public companies. It looked like on that list. So yep. Awesome to see the smaller guy getting recognized for all that you guys do. So today we are talking about what is calling continuous penetration testing, right? And our listeners, I think are pretty familiar with SynerComm overall from a high level, but the goal today is to really peel the onion back and provide some interesting insights from your team. I think one thing that has always come out in a lot of these conversations is just kind of the depth and breadth that SynerComm can bring to the table. So that is where we're trying to go with this conversation today. So my first question is, can we just talk a little bit about what is continuous penetration testing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump in here and talk to that just a little bit. Continuous penetration testing, not surprisingly, is exactly what it sounds like. It's taking what we've traditionally done as what we call point-in-time penetration testing, or something that's done on some cycle or regular basis, and making it continuous. Doing things through a mix of automation and human effort, and putting that all together into a very organized and a processized type of, that's a terrible word right there, put it all together, into a standard organized process that we can use and repeat over and over to perform continuous penetration testing. And we do all of that through these playbooks that we create.
Kirk, obviously this seems like a little bit of an evolution or of where the penetration testing industry is gone. As the CTO, what was your vision of this?
Well, what's unique about where we come from is we have practices basically on traditional silos that were separated. We have a solution resale side of our business. We have a cloud, multi-cloud side of our business, which generally was separate from information assurance, which is what Brian heads up. And the ability to take all that together and run some of our key partner solutions that were, like I said, in that award we got within a network, and actually understand the capabilities of those controls was always the vision. How can we pull that all together and make 1 + 1 = 3 for our clients, to help them understand what is their security posture, what is their risk, and how can I get better over time? Because no one wants to overspend on security. So I like the word efficacy. How do we get a better security posture? How do we operate better, but yet save money at the same time? And that's kind of what this engine is kind of the focal point of, is trying to tie a lot of that together, but also the resources we can bring. We have, being in the reseller side of the business, we have specialists on Palo Alto, we have specialists on CrowdStrike, and some of those key components we can really help make that come together and create a very solid program for a client.
Okay, so you brought up the word engine, and I heard the word playbook. So what is that?
I'll jump in again. The engine is really the back end, the automation and orchestration that runs a lot of what we call our continuous penetration testing, or CASM, standing for continuous attack surface management. The engine is the scanners, and these are scanners that we've home built. There's scanners that are very well known throughout the industry, ones that there is nothing out there that does better, and even a little bit of commercial tools and things that we license and purchase to use. But I think part of the magic or the secret sauce that we bring to the table is that there is no way to automate penetration testing completely. There's tools out there that do pieces of that, but there really hasn't been anybody that's put that together into this mix of the human element and the automation to provide a continual service. And the playbooks, they're the standardization, the methodologies to ensure that we provide consistent coverage across all of our clients, all of the assets that we're monitoring and testing. And really it's our diligence. It's how we know that we're doing all the right things. And if something new hits us tomorrow, we create a playbook for it so that we get that coverage out to all of our clients at the same time and make that available to them.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to go a little bit deeper down that rat hole. I feel like that conversation could take its twist on its own. But before we do that, you mentioned point-in-time pen testing and how this is very different than that. Can you just walk me through what a use case is, or just what a point-in-time pen test would look like?
Yep. Yeah, the point-in-time pen test, there's no replacement. It's what we've been doing for the last 10 plus years, and it's what we're going to continue to do ongoing. Every year, sometimes biannually, whatever that cycle might be, there's always a need for a thorough pen test. Have all of your systems, your networks, all your ingress egress points tested and validated. So we do that. We use that as the beginning point of continuous penetration testing. So if you think of going to a doctor, if they could give you a full body MRI scan from head to toe, find out everything that's wrong with you up front, let you know all of those things so you can start correcting them, and then monitoring you going forward. We try to do that same concept with continuous pen testing and our upfront pen test. Do that thorough pen test up front, get that baseline, that reading of where things are at, hopefully fix the things that should be fixed, and then monitor for things that are different as time goes on, and further testing if and when warranted.
Okay. How long does it generally take to do a point-in-time pen test?
It really depends on the size and the scope that our clients present us with. The more systems you have, the longer it should take. But there's also very creative ways of doing that. It doesn't always have to be, if you have a really large infrastructure, immediately we start with testing 1,000 systems and spending, a couple, 6 weeks on something like that. We can spread that out a bit over the course of quarters or even over the year. But, it's always going to be at least, a week or so of effort up front to just get a baseline.
Okay. Interesting. So let's take this a little bit a step further. And now we're going to go down this rat hole of this engine, or I heard you say the word Chasm, which sounds it's a very cool play on words there. So how does Chasm fit into this? And I guess let's take another step back, and Kirk, maybe you can help me here. Talk to me about what you are. I know you talked to me about like why you built this engine, but kind of talk to me about the vision of where it's going.
Well, the vision is, a lot of people thinking we're in the security business would always say, are you a managed service provider? And we'll talk about that probably a little bit later. And the answer to that is no. What we help you do, though, is that other 99% of the time when you're not under an active attack, helping you, again, get better and improve your program, improve your efficiency, improve the scope of your program, understanding if there's new assets popping up, for instance, public cloud, SaaS apps, all those are potential attack surface for your organization. So it's really the right time for something like this, when our pen testers have been developing this tool, and Brian can elaborate on that a little bit, for years as a way to make our pen testing more comprehensive, repeatable, and effective, with all these different types of reconnaissance that they do. And maybe Brian can elaborate a little bit on that. But we've really taken that in and taken the reconnaissance, normalize the data so we could actually take that data and make it useful between different aspects of security, and then present a picture of what your perimeter looks like. So that's the vision, taking that and just adding more and more functionality over time, getting more and more comprehensive. If you look at a client right now on that perimeter, you could have, Gartner has like 8 different categories. You could have vulnerability scanning, you could have asset management, you can have attack surface management, you can have breach validation or breach and attack surface tools, you can have security ratings platforms. What we're trying to do is say, wow, most people, that's a lot to manage and understand. Let's take the best of and take the offensive perspective or the pen tester perspective, and how do we take all those tools, take what we need to paint that puzzle for the client, and then for what the tool can't do, then we have the high-level pen testers, web app assessors, and even experts on the controls like Palo Alto and those to adapt the logging and things and with Active Directory, so that you can actually see attacks and respond to them through like our adversary simulation. So that's how all the things fit together, with the glue being the tool that just kind of watches and keeps continuously monitoring your perimeter for anything that new that may pop up or any change in the state of what's already out there.
So let's get in the weeds of what this thing is really doing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're building some technology around your best practices that you've developed over the last 10 years. So maybe it'd be helpful to explain to our audience what is it actually doing, and I guess maybe pick a certain kind of swim lane, and let's kind of stair step through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start there. So as Kirk mentioned before, this project started out as our pen testers trying to put together a lot of the common tools and things they use during reconnaissance and wrap some automation and standardization around that. Generally, the methodology of a pen test is that we get a list of IP addresses or names of systems, and we start to enumerate those. We run scans against them to see what's live, what isn't. If something's live, what services are listening. Try to enumerate those services to figure out what's actually running. Is this a web server? And if it is it Apache or is it IIS? What version might that be? And if we know the version, or we can kind of detect what the version might be, we can compare that to databases of vulnerabilities and start to determine, if this system is vulnerable. Sometimes that might be one tool that might be able to accomplish all of those steps. Other times that might be 6 or 7 tools kind of run in a series together and collecting all that information. And that's what the pen tester wants to see as they start to evaluate systems. They need to know what are the endpoints that they can actually attack. And that became the basis of the CASM engine. We actually wrote this 5-6 years ago, or started to write it back then, simply as an internal recon tool. We had an internal name, we called it Recon IT, and it was not the prettiest platform in the world, but it did what it needed to do. And we often refer to it as step 0 of the pen test, that these are all the things that every pen tester has to do up front. And now we've automated that all into a process so that when they start a project, they can almost click a go button and come back a day later to all of this type of information. So really that became the CASM engine, and the platform that we created, completely rewritten from the ground up. And probably one of the most interesting things is that we're finding issues, I wouldn't call them bugs, or certainly not security flaws by any means, but accuracy issues and performance issues all over the place in tools that every pen tester out there has been using for years. And because we're working so closely with these now, we're put in a spot where we're forced to find these flaws and fix them. And because of that, we're very, very proud that this is probably the most accurate engine that collects all of this information out there, but uniquely, it's the only one that's putting this all together.
So how often are you guys are talking about all these different tools that pen testers use? And I'm assuming it's literally like a tool chest of stuff.
It is, yes.
So I'm replacing the tools in my house because they get old, they get worn out. I want new ones. How often are these tool sets actually changing inside of the CASM engine?
I wish it was less frequently than it actually is, just because that means work on our end, right? The good news is that things that work tend to continue to work fairly well. It's not like things are breaking and necessarily need fixing. But to your point, almost every day there's a new tool out there, something newer, better. We don't always look to integrate the tools that we find out there throughout the market. But if there's something that one of them is accomplishing that we see value in collecting that data, generally our process is, let's look at how that tool works and then figure out how to do it more in our way. One great example is, we like to do everything in the Python scripting language. So if the tool wasn't Python natively, we might prefer to rewrite it in Python versus wrapping something else and trying to pull that in.
Okay. So let's go a step further here. You said the word playbooks, at the beginning of this conversation. Let's talk a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, we have dozens of playbooks. Today, I think we're getting right around our 30th playbook that we've written, and we continue to create them every day. The very first playbooks were purely our automation. So everything that our CASM engine does is a playbook. So port scanning, for example, is a playbook. Even surprisingly, UDP, port scanning. UDP is so different than TCP that's a playbook itself. Identifying an operating system. There's dozens of different means of doing that. Different services have different things that they might disclose that help us do that. So operating system identification is a playbook. But we've got plenty of playbooks as well that are more of a mix of automation and human pen tester effort. One of my favorites to talk about is password spraying. Password spraying is kind of the opposite of brooding or trying to guess a user's password, in that if I have a list of potential usernames, I'm trying one password. Like if it was today, I'd probably try spring 2021 with a pound or an exclamation point, and I would spray that across all of a company's users. So password spraying generally isn't a terribly dangerous activity, but if anything went wrong in your automation and you hit your same list like 2 or 3 times in a row, now you've locked out every user's account potentially in that business. And that does get pretty dangerous. So there's a playbook now called password spraying that's a mix of using a couple well-known tools, but a human's always sitting there clicking the go button and monitoring, because we can't have something like that go wrong and cause our clients issues.
Okay, so I heard the word human in there. So is it safe to say there is a mix of technology and human interaction in the CASM engine?
The ChasM engine itself is the automation, but the continuous pen testing service that we overlay and include with that ChasM engine is very much a mix of automation, orchestration, and then that human component. My pen testers love it that I call them human all the time, because it does reassure them that they're still human, but that component is essential. There are, I think I said this earlier, there's tools and things out there like, Metasploit Professional, things that try to automate the pen testing process. But it's no different. I make surgeon analogies all the time with pen testers, but you can put a tray full of all the best tools in front of a surgeon and a patient on a table, and you're probably not going to expect a great outcome. You put all those same tools out there in front of even a good qualified IT person that isn't a pen tester, and you get that same result. So, good tooling with A+ talent is the secret to a continuous penetration testing solution.
Okay, so let's talk more about the people then. We've talked about the technology. We've talked about the problems that you're solving, the gap in the market. Now, my guess is that for this to be valuable to a customer, the people involved in it are a crucial piece of the pie here. So, Kirk, maybe you can kind of touch a little bit on, as you invested. I mean, it's you guys invested in creating this solution. How did you feel the people were going to play when creating this? Because my guess is you guys have invested a significant amount of capital in developing this software.
Correct, and actually it kind of worked out well. We have a DevSecOps type team also that helps with audits and best practices. So we do have a whole DevOps team that's actually working on this platform. But the nice thing about that team also is they come from an information assurance background. So they really understand what they're trying to code and the value proposition of what they're developing. So we knew we had some time, being that we're creating value internally and externally. It gave us a little more leeway to develop the tool and get it done right, and really create not a silo, but a co-development effort every week between one of our target users is our pen testers. We have target users that are internal, and we have external customers where we have target users that could be anything from risk management type clients or oversight people that are maybe more interested in looking at things like red light, green light, blue light. And some of the things we're looking at coming out with in the future here are things like business partner security posture. A lot of the attacks lately we've heard about have been through business partners' weaknesses. So we're really, part of the challenge and part of the excitement is we're developing for very technical audiences, also less technical, but we have this core database that we've put a lot of effort into making it accurate and extensible and normalized. And we were looking at adding things like risk profiles into the whole thing, third-party integration. So if a customer is running headless, say they don't need to look at it every day, we can report maybe to their inventory management system that, hey, there's a new asset available. Someone should look and make sure that's supposed to be there. Or there's a change in vulnerability status. Send that information to the SIM or the EDR solution. So we're also looking at third-party integrations with some of our business partners, as well as informal ones, where we can run this via, looking at the dashboard or alerting people without them having to look. So I think it's exciting to see the different use cases and how they evolve. But what I like is the more time goes on, SynerComm's got a reputation for being around for a long time, and we're not trying to make a big home run and get out of the game. So I think the time plays into our favor as we get engines that are more and more specialized and powerful, and then we can allow the pen testers and things to spend more and more time being pen testers and less time writing reports and validating they collected the right data so they could write the reports, doing the opportunities that are usually done in a hospital at a lower level. So it's increasing our efficiency as a company, but also creating a lot of value in the market, which is really exciting because we're getting it from both ends.
Okay. Well, Brian, you use the you referencing surgeons a lot in this conversation here, and my guess is every time that you need to hire another surgeon, Kirk is trying to cringes over, wow, surgeons are expensive. But as you get if you're getting surgery, there's more than one person in the room. There's maybe multiple surgeons and multiple lab techs and nurses and so on. So talk to me about that mix and what that looks like.
Yeah, and the analogy fits and sticks so well. It's why I keep coming back to it over and over. But the reality is too, for us to build and scale a solution like this, where we're helping and managing hundreds and thousands of clients out there and assets. One of the things we have to do is scale with that, and having a finite number of actual penetration testers means that we need to use them where they're most needed and most effective. Not only did they help build and design and create the platform and everything that we're using today, but they do get brought in on a very regular basis to evaluate new systems, new vulnerabilities, and things like that. So, that secret sauce I mentioned before of the playbooks and some of the automation, that was, very specifically designed so that the pen testers get the notifications and the alerts at the right times so that we can use them most effectively. But at the same time, these are the skills and the talent and stuff that we're using on point in time engagements as well. So we need to have pretty much an A+ team for everything we do. There isn't really a spot for a second-rate pen tester in most of the world of pen testing, but I feel even more so in what we do here. So you mentioned, things like expensive and potentially hard to find and things like that. Absolutely, they're like those surgeons. We're looking for the best and the brightest. We're looking for the people that have a passion for security. There's a big difference in this world between the people that do IT and even security and work their 8 to 5 and go home, and the people that are so entrenched in security that it's like playing a video game or going out to a ball game or something. For some people, they want to do security and hacking and stuff like that at night. So that combination of that personality and talent put together with selectively using them in the right way really gives us a pretty unique story here.
Okay. I remember last year, Brian, you and I did I think it was a webinar for some of the listeners of ChannelBytes, and you mentioned in there, and I'm going to butcher this, so just correct me when I'm done making the statement. Is you have some engineers that have some type of certification where it's like pretty high up or fairly unique. What do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah. The OSCP certification, offensive security. It's kind of the one cert in our industry that I feel holds some good water to it. It's a lab-based exam. They kind of make you prove that you've got a pretty good baseline skill set. I would call it not only in pen testing, hacking type stuff, but a little bit forensic even. You really know how to examine an operating system and look for not only flaws, but maybe even configurations and things like that create the flaws. So I like to see OSCP certified or certified individuals applying for these roles. And if somebody doesn't come to us but still does have that capability, within a year of employment with us. But it is something, it's very rare for me to mention certifications in this industry because most don't hold a lot of weight to them. But I think the OSCP is worth noting, and I'm proud to have a team of so many OSCP certified pen testers.
All right, Brian, well, I appreciate all of that. So we've talked about the product, we've talked about the technology, we've talked about the people. We're using this word continuous a lot. So if I'm a company, right? And I need to do penetration testing. Why should I buy continuous penetration testing from SynerComm, or just buy 4, point in time pen tests from SynerComm?
Or other people,
Great.
even. Yeah.
Or I guess, or some of your competitors, but
Yeah. Yep. And to that point, part of the reason that continuous penetration testing even came to be was that companies were starting to do pen tests more than just, maybe every 2 years. Then it became annually. Then it became semi-annually, and even quarterly in some scenarios. So there are clients, that we're doing all 4 quarters, and there are clients certainly that might be, using multiple different pen testing firms. I think that there's, the obvious that anytime you're doing something 365 days a year versus, just a few point in time, that there is continual coverage now where there would have been gaps otherwise. There's always going to be a time where the testing ended and a report was issued, and before the next test starts with any point in time solutions. There's always been great arguments for using multiple pen test firms, whether it's multiple times a year or just on an annual basis. The obvious is always that that new set of eyes, as everybody likes to say, that anytime a new pen tester might look at something, they might have some additional skills, capabilities, insights, so they can bring that to the table. But we also have a large team here, so we can bring additional resources and insight, just like any other firm could, by rotating resources. But in the continuous world, now you have all of those resources. I don't want to say necessarily at your disposal, but internally and behind the scenes, they are at your disposal. And you're taking advantage now of a team of pen testers working with your company versus an individual. So I know I gave a few answers there, but I think there's a lot to be said, even when you might have a policy that said you should use multiple firms, to at least look at the continuous option. And maybe instead of doing quarterly, you're doing a continuous plus maybe one extra set of eyes at some other point during the year. Continuous is always better, right?
All right, so let's wrap this up with one more question. I want to know what the difference between an MSSP is and what SynerComm is doing. Are you, I guess, or let me restate that question. Are you guys an MSSP?
I would say no. I've got a whole bunch of joking reasons why, but first and foremost, MSSPs are generally, when our clients come to us and they're talking about an MSSP, they're asking us for a recommendation because they're not happy with the provider that they're currently using. The reason for that usually is that there's low value. There's not a lot of proactive security guidance and help that MSSPs typically provide. They're either running vulnerability scans, which are very, very low value, things we do ourselves anyway, or they're monitoring for attacks, which is pretty darn hard to do. If it was that simple, then everybody would be avoiding breaches. But the reality is breaches keep happening every day, and in a lot of cases it's because MSSPs are failing. We are providing a managed service, but I definitely do not like to consider ourselves an MSSP because it's become a bit of a dirty word. I like to think that we're providing a proactive service based on the useful information that pen testers would use if they're trying to breach your network. We're presenting you with that raw data as well as our findings of what vulnerabilities need to be corrected.
Kirk, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like Brian said, we're there. We'll make your MSSP better through some of the solutions we offer. We're there looking for anything that changed. We're there helping you get better on your program, get better, get more efficacy over time with our, not just our pen test, but then we can do attack simulations. So you can tune your controls. We can audit and help you understand that you even have the right logging set up, that a lot of it isn't default. So by us being engaged, we can help you make your MSSP experience actually better. So I think we enhance them. We enhance the vulnerability people. enhance a bunch of them and kind of create that glue to create a whole program out of a bunch of different point solutions.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time. So let's close it out by, I'm going to put in the description of this a link to your website, and that link will go to their continuous pen testing part of their website. So if anyone has any interest in talking to someone, please go to there. Brian, Kirk, always a pleasure. I appreciate your time. You have been listening to SynerComm's IT Trendsetters. Thank you.